Generations ago, the He family's ancestor was hailed as one of the 5 most renowned master pharmacists in B City, but after that golden era, the business was passed down to her father's generation, and it began its steep decline. Even during Ling Su's grandfather's time, the He family was still a powerhouse, with branches of Xingzhan Tang stretching across several provinces, boasting a network of over 100 pharmaceutical stores. Now, they were at their weakest, with only 2 struggling shops left in Bass City. The world of martial arts is evolving at a breakneck pace, and the medicine industry, which is deeply intertwined with cultivation, is changing just as fast. New breakthroughs happen daily, rendering old methods and sciences obsolete. The primary reason for the He family's fall from grace is their own conservative mindset. They were too old-fashioned, clinging stubbornly to outdated rules, and refusing to innovate. It was a painful thought. Just 100 years ago, when martial arts tonics were all the rage, people would spend their entire monthly income on a single blood-nourishing pill. But now, the only path forward, the only way for her family to rise from this and become the strongest once more, is to shatter the old ways and introduce something revolutionary. Ling Su had been trying to do just that for some time now. She had scoured every possible lead for a new supplementary tonic that could serve as the flagship product to revive the He family's business. But after half a year, she had achieved next to nothing. Just yesterday, she'd heard a rumor that an old pharmacist in the neighboring city had developed a groundbreaking new tonic, so she immediately rushed over, hoping for a breakthrough. But halfway there, she received a call from them, bluntly telling her not to bother coming. They had already sealed a deal with another partner, and so Ling Su returned, completely empty-handed. "Miss, you've returned." The moment she stepped inside, a young man in a white coat eagerly greeted her. But Ling Su was exhausted and in no mood to pay him any mind. She offered only a cold, dismissive nod in his direction. Having managed the pharmacy for some time now, she naturally knew exactly what her employees were like behind her back. This particular storekeeper, Maf, was notoriously lazy and loved to slack off on the job. He even occasionally pilfered the store's medicinal tonics to sell on the side. She'd warned him several times, but he never changed his ways. If it weren't for the difficulty in finding a replacement, she would have fired him on the spot long ago. "She's so beautiful. If only she were my girlfriend," Maf mused, his gaze glued to Ling Su's retreating figure until she vanished completely from his sight. Ling Su had always been the unattainable goddess in Maf's fantasies. The real reason he stuck around at Xingzhan Tang, despite his poor work ethic, was his foolish dream that one day Ling Su might actually notice him. Maf was sprawled across the counter, lost in a daydream where he was the hero, when Ling Su's silhouette suddenly appeared before his very eyes. Miss He." Maf shot up in a panic, hastily wiping a trail of drool from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. Her expression was like a sheet of ice, her face utterly grim. "Did you secretly bring someone into my personal tonic mixing room?" "No, of course not." Maf frantically shook his head, but his stammering and darting eyes told Ling Su everything she needed to know. "Forget it, don't bother coming into work tomorrow," Ling Su stated with cold indifference. Miss, please, let me explain." But she paid Maf no more attention, simply turning her back on him and walking away. Moments earlier, when she had entered her mixing room, she discovered that much of the delicate equipment and instruments had been disturbed. Even her lab coat reeked of a man's scent from the inside. "That lunatic, he infuriates me." Fuming, Ling Su continued her cleanup when she spotted something, a broken flask. She suddenly noticed the discarded container tucked away in an obscure corner of the room. A small amount of a light green liquid remained inside. Ugh, it's just revolting. Filled with disdain, Ling Su pulled on a pair of gloves, intending to toss it straight into the trash as she bent down to grab it, but she paused. The spilled potion seemed to be a novel combination of disparate, unrelated ingredients that the components seemed utterly incompatible, yet the resulting aroma and appearance were so breathtakingly unique it left her astonished, as she had never witnessed anything like it. Even heard of such a thing. Overcome by curiosity, she carefully dabbed a single drop onto her finger. Lately, her thoughts were consumed with creating new medicines and tonics, so much so that she was willing to investigate an unknown liquid found amongst the trash and analyze its composition. After a moment of examining the substance on her finger, she instinctively licked it to test its properties. To her utter shock, she was astounded by the tonic's heaven-defying effects. "This is unbelievable." Meanwhile, feeling like the absolute weakest, Maf was crying as he packed his belongings, ready to leave for good. The thought of not having another chance to see his goddess filled him with immense regret. "I never should have been tempted by that couple of hundred that kid offered me. Now look where it's gotten me." Maf carried his things out of Xingzhan Tang, glancing back with a yearning look in his eyes. Asterisk, "Oh fate, can you just give me one last chance to see my goddess?" Asterisk, Maf sighed internally. In the very next instant, a miracle occurred. Ling Su actually appeared right before him, and not only that, she was sprinting in his direction, her face a mask of tension, anxiety, and sheer urgency. "Maf! Hey, Maf, where are you? Don't tell me you've already left." Maf stood there, completely stunned. His wildest fantasy was coming true. An overwhelming wave of joy and excitement swelled in his chest as he stammered. "Little Ling Su, I'm right here. You haven't gone home yet?" Ling Su lunged forward, grabbing the front of Maf's shirt, and eagerly demanded, "You're just in time. I have something critically important to ask you." She frowned at the way Maff addressed her, but she had no time to dwell on it. Who was that person you brought into the mixing room earlier today? I need to see him this instant, right now. Huh? Maff froze solid. This wasn't how the scenes in the web novels he read were supposed to play out. This wasn't what he had imagined at all. Are you deaf? I said I need to see the man you brought into the mixing room. If you can help me find him, I guarantee I'll let you keep your job here, and I'll even double your salary. Oh right. MAF snapped out of his daydream and quickly pulled out his phone. I have his contact information. Give it to me now. Ling Su was practically vibrating with anxiety. What if she was delayed by even a single minute? It was no wonder she was acting this way. The preliminary test results on the residue were in, and they were nothing short of miraculous. The blood replenishment effect is so potent it becomes strongest in its class, exceeding by more than 10 times those tonics available for less than 100,000 yuan on the market. But that wasn't all. It also possessed secondary properties for skin brightening, muscle building, and other incredible effects. Based on preliminary estimates, the manufacturing cost for this liquid shouldn't exceed 5,000 yuan. Considering all these factors, Ling Su could practically see an unprecedented business opportunity waving at her. With this, the family had hope again. The small room felt the entire room had transformed into a veritable steam bath. Anyone stepping inside would have mistaken it for a high-intensity sauna. It was undeniable that Ling was the epicenter of this oppressive heat, his body radiating steam like a boiling kettle. Through the dense haze, one could just make out Lu Xing's muscles, trembling with a slow, rhythmic power. In a short time, Ling completed the final movement of his exercise, yet he remained seated with his eyes closed, his chest rising and falling powerfully as plumes of white steam billowed from his nostrils and mouth, coiling through the air. These vaporous trails moved like mystical serpents, a testament to the stellar body refining technique, truly a method worthy of its title as the most formidable body tempering art from 10,000 years in the future, capable of transforming even the weakest vessel into a bastion of power. The potential it unlocks is simply staggering. At this rate, Ling mused internally, a literal star might begin to form within me on my path to become the strongest. My BQV has risen once more. The spiritual muscle and blood-strengthening soup is incredibly potent with my current constitution, it seems. That 2 portions per day is the absolute maximum my body can absorb. Any more would be a waste. By that calculation, if I do the math, my current supply will sustain me for another 6 days. I'll need to find another source after that. Suddenly, the phone began to ring. Ling answered it, his voice curt. Yes, 1 week from now. He then ended the call before the other person could even reply. On the other end, Ling Su snatched the phone directly from Maff's hand, but was only met with the dial tone of a disconnected call. He hung up on me. Undeterred, Ling Su redialed immediately, only to hear the automated message. The user you have dialed is currently switched off. The robotic voice was the final straw. Arg, this is infuriating, she seethed, grabbing Maff to vent her frustration. She then commanded him, from this moment on, your sole responsibility is to find that master for me. The faster, the better. In fact, for every day you shave off the search, I will reward you with 5,000 no, 10,000 yuan. For real? The mention of a reward instantly revitalized Maff's spirit. He was suddenly all ears. Miss He, you have to be good for it, she scoffed. When have I ever broken a promise? As Maff's mind raced, calculating the potential fortune, a crucial detail resurfaced. He spoke up with a hint of concern. Miss, I think there might be a misunderstanding about who you're looking for. The person who borrowed the mixing room? He was just a teenager, probably still in high school. How could he possibly be the master pharmacist you mentioned? A student. Ling Su's brow furrowed as she whispered to herself. In that case, there must be a true master guiding him from the shadows. A wave of impatience washed over Ling Su, a volatile mix of excitement and anxiety. She felt both desperate to find him and terrified of what she might discover. Her emotional state was an indescribable storm. We're now at base 1359. Ling stood motionless in the center of a ruined street, and roughly 10 meters away, a towering zombie stood waiting. The creature was missing its left arm, and a grotesque wound over 30 centimeters in length was carved into its chest. It canted its head to the side, its vacant eyes fixed on some distant, unseen point. After a moment of silence, Ling deliberately took a single, slow step forward. That one movement was all it took. The previously still, one-armed zombie snapped its head around, its gaze locking onto him. Without a sound, the monster launched itself forward. Ling's eyes remained perfectly calm as he took a deep breath, lowering his stance. He moved to intercept it. The two figures crashed into one another with brutal force on the desolate street. They met and recoiled in an instant, and one of them was sent stumbling back several steps. A flicker of strain crossed Lu Xing's face. The battle with this one-armed zombie had just begun. The intense battle dragged on, and a palpable sense of danger radiated from the creature, yet even then, standing face to face with it, Ling found himself at a clear disadvantage, thinking, it's at least 2 times stronger than I am. The one-armed zombie was indeed swifter and more powerful than him, completely immune to exhaustion or pain. However, it possessed its own glaring, weakest point. It lacked an arm, possessed no intelligence, and could only fight based on raw, muscular instinct. This very flaw presented Ling with the perfect opportunity for a direct victory. He moved with agility, deftly evading the one-armed zombie's crushing fist, Seizing the chance during a momentary lapse in its assault, he spotted an opening in its guard, clenched his fist, and aimed a punch at the zombie's forehead. His strike traveled in a flawless arc, and as it did, the muscles in his arms seemed to ripple as if they had taken on a life of their own. The one-armed zombie's head instantly erupted. This single blow was immensely more powerful than any of Luing's prior attacks, incomparably so. With a heavy thud, the zombie collapsed, and Luing immediately seized the opening, launching himself into the air and driving a powerful kick into the zombie's head, finishing it for good. Luing approached the fallen creature, gazing at its ruined form before chanting aloud, "The spirit is undying." In response, the zombie's body began to rapidly decay, its lifetime of combat experience and skills transforming into black smoke that streamed directly into Luing's body. Luing absorbed the essence in silence. He had long since stopped seeing these zombies as mere experience points, instead associating an inexplicable feeling with each one, a sense of admiration, remembrance, or perhaps even a solemn commitment. After fully absorbing the memory, Luing discovered that the one-armed zombie had once been a level 5 martial artist in life, with a particular expertise in hand-to-hand combat. Gaining the experience of such a level 5 martial artist, its insights and perceptions allowed Luing to shatter his own limits. This is how one becomes strongest. He stepped into an entirely new realm of close combat and martial arts. He could feel his BQV had risen significantly, but he wasn't sure by the exact amount. Even if my BQV falls short of a level 2 martial artist standard, he thought, my current CPI should more than compensate for the difference, especially if I employ the secret method I've learned, combined with the natural breathing technique. The secret method Luing considered was, in fact, a specialized power generation technique. This type of technique could enable a martial artist to unleash explosive power several times, tens of times, or even hundreds of times greater than their normal state, causing their combat power to skyrocket. Luing had a name for this technique: stellar power generation. As he emerged from his meditative state, Luing's eyes opened. It's been some time since I last checked my BQV and CPI. I'll get them tested today. If my stats meet the requirements, passing the martial artist exam should be simple. He headed to the same familiar place he always used for assessments, the Red River Martial Arts Academy. "I'd like to rent the testing apparatus, please." The charming receptionist studied Luing's face for a moment before smiling. "Brother, you're back again. Is it because you're worried about your performance in the upcoming examinations?" The receptionist had clearly recognized him. "Do I come here that often?" Luing paused, then quickly realized she was right. This was his third visit this month alone. Luing had no time for the receptionist's friendly flirting and offered no explanation. He simply offered her vague remarks and a few dismissive nods before stepping into the familiar testing room where Luing found an unoccupied instrument. The room's emptiness was a stroke of luck, granting him the privacy he needed to work with the equipment. First, I'd better gauge my BQV. This was the value he was most concerned about. Luing placed his hand upon the sphere to assess his BQV. Almost instantly, with a soft hum from the machine, a value materialized: 15.632. Such a massive increase. Luing himself was startled. It was a world away from when he was considered among the weakest. He'd assumed his current level wasn't enough to reach rank 2 martial artist status, but this value proved otherwise. When he thought about it, with the help of his supreme martial artist cultivation method, not to mention the most advanced tonics from 10,000 years in the future, it would be bizarre not to achieve such an exaggerated result. Now, for my CPI. A sharp light glinted in Ling's eyes as he aimed a fierce punch at the strength measuring apparatus before him. "Let's measure my relaxed state first." With a muffled thud, a number flashed onto the strength meter's screen: 3,137. So high. Luing was shocked for a second. Having absorbed so many combat techniques and so much experience, his combat power index had always surpassed his corresponding blood chi value standard, but this margin was far too wide. This was something Luing had not expected at all. Maybe it's because of my hand-to-hand combat technique. Luing thought for a moment and quickly found the connection. His hand combat skills had achieved a breakthrough earlier, and he hadn't had a chance to test it since. It must have been his fist technique that amplified his power output, causing the value to soar. In that case, my ultimate combat power is much higher than I initially expected. This is the power one needs when he becomes strongest. Luing grew excited and decided to test it one more time. This time, he would use the stellar power generation technique. 5 minutes later, Luing walked out of the testing room. He wore a serene expression, making it impossible to discern his mood. "Brother, are you finished with the test? I hope you were satisfied with the results." The receptionist greeted him with a smile. Luing smiled faintly, his handsome face evoking a feeling of springtime in her mind. "Very satisfied." The receptionist winked playfully. "Then, I wish you good luck on your examinations." "Thanks." Luing waved his hand and walked out of the Martial Arts Academy in long strides. The receptionist watched Ling's back as he left and muttered with a smile, "That brat acts so cool, but he's quite good looking when he smiles." "Who are you talking about?" A voice suddenly came from behind the girl, startling her. She turned her head to see who spoke and immediately stood up. "Senior sister." And Yuang stared in the direction Luing had left, a look of keen interest growing in her eyes. She had seen Luing leave before, recognizing him as the poor genius who had managed to surprise her once in the past. "Did that man come here for a test?" "Yes, he's been here 3 times this month." "I suppose he's quite nervous about the upcoming examinations," the receptionist said matter-of-factly. He's a student who came to rent the testing devices. I assume he's from a nearby school. The type of student whose family can't even afford it. That tester probably didn't score too well. The teenager behind Annie Wang commented with a smirk, his skin noticeably fair. He looked rather handsome, was dressed more elegantly than those from common families, and spoke with an inherent sense of superiority. Annie Wang nodded in agreement, although the young man's tone left her feeling slightly uneasy. She couldn't deny the truth in his statement. Annie Wang then smacked the kid on the head, telling him to focus on his own test instead of making comments about the less fortunate. She explained that children from wealthy families are raised on all kinds of performance-enhancing elixirs before they even mature. Their blood chi value vastly surpasses that of others by a huge margin, and with access to all kinds of advanced martial arts, the power gap only widens between them and their peers. The kid eagerly approached Annie Wang, asking, "Senior sister Annie, can you pull up the test results of that guy? I'd like to see just how wide the chasm is between me and one of the weakest. The ones you should be comparing yourself to are the geniuses at your academy, the top students, not ordinary people." I know. I just want a little self-confidence boost. Please, senior sister Annie. Unable to deny the teenager's pleading, Annie Wang reluctantly walked to the device and displayed the previous tester's results. That guy was as scrawny as a bamboo shoot. His blood chi value is probably less than 1. He's likely a bit older than me, too. Hey. The teenager chattered on, his face already glowing with the pleasure of his anticipated superiority. But when the data appeared on the screen, Annie Wang's expression froze solid. The teenager stumbled and fell to the ground. His entire body was paralyzed with shock, his eyes fixated on the data on the display as if he couldn't trust his own sight. "It's fake!" The teenager shrieked immediately, shouting in utter disbelief. "That guy, the one from just now, how could his blood chi value be so much higher than mine?" And Wang was also frozen in shock for a moment. The receptionist let out a sharp gasp, her pretty eyes widening instantly as she slapped a hand over her mouth. "He was the only person who used it today. You should be able to locate his data easily." The receptionist stammered, "Is this machine broken?" And Wang's voice came out hoarse and strained. The receptionist was stunned for several seconds before she reacted strongly, blurting out, "Impossible. We had it serviced just yesterday." In that case, Annie Wang drew a deep breath, trying to calm the shockwaves rattling her core, and said with some hesitation, "A person with this score becomes strongest." "Is this score for real?" Half a minute later, Annie Wang's voice echoed from the testing room, loud enough to almost be heard in the academy's main lobby. "Find the young man who just took this test immediately. Go now. Everyone, disperse now. He's been to our Red River Martial Academy before, so he must not live far. Surely someone nearby must know him. Go." "Yes, senior sister and I." Annie Wang tried to compose herself, all the while burning the image of Ling she had seen earlier into her mind. "Please take me to the Martial Arts Association," Mr. Ling said, getting into a cab and stating his destination. The cab driver was an obvious chatterbox, going on about everything from college entrance exams to university life, and then from college to finding a job. He prattled on about anything and everything, boring Ling to death. Upon reaching his destination, Ling quickly settled the fare and exited the vehicle, letting out a profound sigh of relief. The taxi driver leaned out of his window, bidding Ling an enthusiastic farewell. "It was a real pleasure, young man. Talking to you, that is. If fate brings us together again, I'll have to introduce you to my daughter." Ling thought to himself, "I really should have mentioned I was heading to the Martial Artists Association for my Level 2 certification exam. That way, he would definitely have thought I was completely unhinged and left me alone." Ling simply offered a polite smile and a silent nod, secretly wishing, "I pray, there won't be a next time." As he turned, the imposing Martial Artists Association building came into view. Ling followed the directions on a posted notice, which led him to the window designated for martial artist certification, where he was immediately asked, "Are you here to take the Level 1 martial artist certification test?" The staff member behind the counter scrutinized Lu Xing's identification card and gave him a particularly long, appraising stare. Ling just nodded. "Fill out this form, the assessment fee is 1,000 yuan, then head over there." The staff member patiently and meticulously guided Ling through the process. Ling promptly completed the necessary paperwork, paid the fee, and, following the directions, entered a room clearly marked Martial Artist Assessment Room. Upon walking in, he found a group of people already gathered inside, along with an examiner dressed in overalls. Ling submitted his form and then found a quiet corner to wait for his turn. Some of the other hopefuls in the assessment room were murmuring about a young girl, and Ling glanced over at the commissaire. Girl with a purple hairband, guessing she was around his own age. Just a few moments later, a powerfully built figure strode into the assessment room. Everyone present was immediately taken aback by his formidable physique. All eyes were fixed on him. As the young man confidently approached the assessment desk, as he handed in his form, a girl cried out in disbelief. "Didn't he arrive after us? Why is he going second?" The examiner shot the girl a cold glance and announced, "This individual is here for the Level 3 Martial Artist Assessment. As per the regulations, he is granted priority over the rest of you." The collective gasp of the room was audible. As everyone stared at the scarred man, their faces a mixture of shock and profound awe. A Level 3 assessment? Ling was starkly reminded that in this world, the weakest are ignored while only the strong command respect. It was a clear sign that the powerful were entitled to their privileges. The scarred man then walked silently toward the testing apparatus. He was there to have his BQV measured. A number swiftly appeared on the display, 107.25. The onlookers in the room appeared, completely astonished. A BQV exceeding 100 signified that the scarred man had officially met the standard for a level 3 martial artist in the blood and chi category. Next up was the combat power index. The scarred man squared up to the testing machine and unleashed a punch. The punch was executed with such blinding speed that most people couldn't even track it. All they perceived was a brief blur before their eyes, followed by a muffled impact that resonated in their ears. Ling's eyes, however, flickered as he managed to see the man's punch with perfect clarity. He recognized the stance and the delivery. It clearly originated from a sophisticated combat technique. 131. The value flashed onto the gauge. Congratulations, Xiao Chang F. As of this moment, you are officially a level 3 martial artist, recognized by the Bias City Martial Arts Association. You are now entitled to a martial cultivation allowance of 30,000 yuan each month. A brilliant smile spread across the examiner's face, a true sign of respect for one who becomes strongest. For the first time, and as the examiner announced the results, the entire room stared at the scarred man with overwhelming envy. The scarred warrior absorbed the examiner's praise in silence before returning to his seat with quiet confidence. Ling watched him with a curious expression. The man hadn't left after his assessment, seemingly intending to stay. He was going to spectate the rest of the trials. The girl in purple suddenly cried out in disbelief. The sheer wind pressure from that punch. A rank 3 strike is powerful enough to floor a rank 1 martial artist. That man is an absolute monster. Ling stepped forward and asked calmly, "So, that's the standard for a rank 3 martial artist?" The girl shot him a bewildered look, wondering why he was acting so nonchalant. Did he think he was a big shot just for enduring the pressure? After the scarred man, Xiao Qing's incredible display, the mood had soured. Everyone else in the hall was feeling dejected, so Ling approached the examiner and said, "May I take my turn? The line is empty now." The examiner noted that the other candidates were demoralized, having just endured the aura of a rank 3 martial artist. In contrast, Ling stood up calmly, instantly feeling every eye in the room lock onto him, including the scarred man's. The girl with the purple hairband stared, and even the examiner's gaze fell upon him. After all, not many applicants were this young. His youth alone was a testament to his talent. "No need to be nervous, son. Just perform as you normally would," the examiner said with rare gentleness. Ling simply nodded and placed his hand on the testing sphere, while the entire room held its breath, their eyes glued to the instrument's display. Some watched intently, others with casual disdain. The next moment, a value materialized, 15,701. The room erupted into chaos. More than half the candidates shot to their feet in shock, and even the formidable scarred man and the girl in purple were no exception. They stood bolt upright in agitation, while one man who had been lounging casually slid right off his seat and onto the floor. He landed hard on his rear. "No way. Am I seeing this right? 15,000, that's a level 2 martial artist. The machine has to be broken. It must be broken." A chorus of disbelief echoed as everyone's gaze darted between the impossible number on the screen and Ling's unassuming frame. The examiner's hand, holding the results form, trembled violently before he scrambled to inspect the machine. He cleared his throat. "Don't worry, relax. The combat power index test can be taken as many times as you need. Just give us your best shot." The other examinees' faces twitched with envy at the offer. Ling, however, took a slow breath and addressed the examiner directly. "No need," he stated plainly. "One attempt will be more than enough." The examiner was stunned, speechless, and before he could react, he saw Ling's fist move. The others only saw him take a simple stance, but for the scarred man, Xiao Qing, everything changed in that instant. A brilliant flash of pure astonishment lit up his eyes, as if he was witnessing the moment a man becomes strongest, and he instinctively took 2 steps closer. A deep, thunderous impact echoed through the hall, far louder than the one the scarred man had produced. Every single heart in the room skipped a beat. At the sound, all eyes snapped to the power gauge, anxiously awaiting the final number, but their eagerness was short-lived. It lasted for a fleeting moment before they all froze solid, their mouths agape and their eyes glazed over with shock. They looked as though they had just seen a ghost. "1, 1, 1. The examiner stammered, his face a mask of utter disbelief. He trailed off, realizing he was just repeating the same digit. He forced himself to stop, took a shaky breath, and then read the full number. 1,579. Ling remained unfazed. To him, who was far from the weakest, this result was entirely expected. He had tested once before at the Red River Martial Arts Academy, but his result then was a stark reminder of when he was at his weakest. His score had been just under 15,600, making this new record his personal best since mastering his advanced combat techniques. By combining his stellar power generation with the natural breathing technique, his combat power index had skyrocketed, increasing a full 10 times the standard BQV. Is this the true power of my martial arts? Ling wondered internally, marveling at his own achievement and the path he was on as he becomes strongest. Ling glanced over at the examiner and said calmly, "That will be all. There's no need for another demonstration." Snapping out of his daze, the examiner subconsciously nodded and began reciting the standard script. Congratulations. Student Ling, you have successfully passed the Level 1 Martial Artist Assessment. From this day forward, you are officially You'll be. The examiner trailed off, unable to finish the sentence, for the simple reason that he had no idea what rank to assign him. Ling's application had declared him a candidate for Level 1, a rank he had just completely shattered. His actual power, however, far surpassed not just Level 1, but even some seasoned Level 2 martial artists. His combat power index was at an unbelievable Level 3 standard. So, how was he supposed to be graded? Level 1, 2, or 3? The examiner's face twisted with anxiety. If he mishandled this, he could earn Ling's displeasure, and to offend such a prodigy was tantamount to career suicide. With that thought, the examiner scurried over to Ling's side. He quickly explained, regarding your official rank, I must report this to my superiors first. Rest assured, Ling, the Martial Arts Association never overlooks any talent. No, not talent, a genius. Especially a once-in-a-generation genius like yourself. Ling was momentarily taken aback but quickly accepted the situation. This simply meant he would have to return home and await the official verdict. In that case, I'll be heading out, Ling said, though he still had a few unanswered questions for the man, but the examiner had already bolted from the assessment room, leaving the other participants behind. The remaining examinees, who were still waiting for their turns, were left in stunned silence. Ling could only shake his head in resignation. As he prepared to depart, a figure suddenly moved to intercept him, blocking his path forward. It was the powerfully built man, Zhao Changfeng. He extended a hand toward Ling, his eyes blazing with intensity. Ling paused for a second, before reaching out to meet the offered handshake. Ling, he introduced himself. Upon hearing the name, a flicker of restrained excitement lit up the scarred man's eyes, as if he had just been granted a great honor. He nodded respectfully, recognizing a man who becomes strongest. He then took it upon himself to clear a path for Ling. Ling wondered to himself, is this his way of showing respect? Just then, he noticed from the corner of his eye another person hurrying towards him with an outstretched hand, clearly mimicking Zhao Changfeng's gesture. And behind that person, the rest of the people in the room were also rushing forward, hands extended, all following the same trend. Ling beat a hasty retreat, practically flying out of the assessment room. The gesture was amusing when it was just one person, but it quickly became overwhelming when an entire crowd joined in. Besides, the others seemed less like dignified martial artists and more like a chaotic mob of followers. Meanwhile, just outside the Martial Artists Association, 3 young women were waiting. Among them was Lu Qingge. Ling took a detour around the building, feeling convinced there was nothing left to accomplish. He prepared to head home, but just as he turned to depart, a sudden sound caught his attention. Just as he was about to leave, a voice called out to him from behind. Losing turned to see 3 girls standing playfully a short distance away. The trio appeared to be around the same age, all slightly younger than him, and the girl positioned in the center was staring right at him. She wore a complex expression on her face. Who else could it be but his own sister, Ling? Lysing, what are you even doing here? He approached the 3 girls. I should be the one asking you that. Ling shot back, her tone feigning annoyance. You're always skipping class, lazing around in your room like you're the weakest person I know. So what brings you to the Martial Arts Association of all places? Ling eyed him with a deeply suspicious gaze. Losing felt a pang of embarrassment. So what if he skipped school? And even if he did spend most of his days sleeping, how on earth did she know? It seemed his little sister had been paying far too much attention to him lately. Losing replied nonchalantly, I just had some business nearby, it's finished now, so I'm heading out. What about you 3? Ling just gave him a blank stare, clearly not in the mood to explain. Just then, a girl with a cheerful face and a pink hairpin glanced at Lusing and eagerly introduced herself as Sunu. It was she who quickly clarified, we're here to support our senior, Yang Yuan. She's a senior in our martial arts club, and we're all really close to her. The other girl chimed in, Ling, is this your brother? He doesn't seem nearly as frustrating as you always make him out to be. He's clearly a great older brother. You too? Ling glared at her 2 friends who had so quickly betrayed her, fuming and nearly at a loss for words. Seeing Ling's frustration, Losing took the initiative. Hello, I'm Losing, Ling's older brother. It sounds like I caused you girls a lot of trouble. You're the trouble, Ling snapped back, her anger flaring. The other 2 girls, however, were quite pleasant, and the slim one nodded with a grin. Losing offered a faint smile and reached out his hand to ruffle Ling's hair, causing her face to flush red with a sudden urge to smack him. But before she could react, he was already walking away. I'm so annoyed, Ling exclaimed, fixing the hair he'd messed up, yet a strange ripple went through her heart. Ling, your brother is seriously handsome. He's so tall and good-looking. Not in a delicate way, but very radiant. Yeah, whatever, Ling grumbled irritably. Fan was about to add something else, but just then, Sunu looked off in one direction and gasped, Senior Yanan is out. The trio immediately rushed over to greet a tall, beautiful girl wearing a purple hairband. Senior Yang Yuan, how did it go? Is the exam finished? Ling asked the moment they reached, her face alight with eager anticipation. Yang Yuan's expression, however, was peculiar. It was a look of indescribable complexity. Don't even ask. There was an incident, and the entire examination has been suspended. I suppose we will have to wait for the afternoon session. Yang Yuan shook her head. Linga and her friends were taken aback and quickly pressed her. What kind of incident could possibly halt the entire exam? Yanan gave a wry smile. A monster. A veritable demon. He terrified the examiners so badly that the man just fled. Without an examiner, the tests can't continue. The three girls listened with complete fascination. Yang Yuan sighed, her eyes swirling with a mix of awe and disbelief. The thing is, this guy was about our age, maybe even younger. During his assessment, it was like watching someone who becomes strongest overnight. His BQV clocked in at 15.7, and it was still climbing. What was truly shocking was his CPI, which clocked in at around 15,700. Isn't that terrifying? I always considered myself a genius, but this makes me feel like I'm among the weakest. But after seeing him, I finally understand the truth. Yan Yuan sighed, adding, now I know what a true genius, someone destined to become the strongest, really looks like. Upon hearing Yan Yuan's words, the three Ling sisters were utterly dumbfounded, their mouths agape and eyes wide as if they were frozen in place. They were so stunned they couldn't even form a proper expression, until the younger sister, Fan Fan, finally broke the silence. With a burning curiosity, she asked, what's his name, do you know? At this, Lu Qingya and Sunuo instantly leaned in, their ears perked and their gazes fixed intently. Yan Yuan met their gazes, nodded, and finally revealed the name, Lu Xing. As she said it, a deep sigh escaped her, her expression a mixture of awe and regret. She was lost in her lamentation for a moment, but when she looked up, she immediately sensed that something was terribly amiss. The expressions on the faces of the Ling sisters had turned incredibly peculiar, especially Lu Qingya's. She looked completely and utterly shell-shocked. Yan Yuan blinked in confusion, and just as she was about to ask what was wrong, a faint question escaped from Fan Fan's lips. Qingye, your brother's name is Lu Xing, isn't it? And didn't he just leave the assessment room? Now, it was Yan Yuan's turn to be frozen in shock. Meanwhile, Lu Xing was already making his way home, feeling a bit peckish after his exertions. He casually picked up a dozen or so meat buns, munching on a couple as he walked, and was nearing the entrance to his residential community. Just as he approached, Lu Xing noticed a group of people in uniform rushing past him, and they looked vaguely familiar. It took him a moment to place them, but then he recognized the uniforms from the Red River Martial Arts Academy. Nearby, a few residents were gathered. They stood at the community entrance, watching the commotion and speculating amongst themselves. Who are all these people? They're from the Red River Martial Arts Academy. I hear they're searching for someone. They've already been through several other neighborhoods. Going door to door, even. Lu Xing overheard the idle chatter but didn't give the situation a second thought. He had only a passing familiarity with the Red River Martial Arts Academy, having visited just a couple of times. If the academy was looking for someone to settle a score with, then so be it. It was none of his concern. Lu Xing finished the last of his bun as he stepped back into his home. He headed straight to his room to begin his training, and after some time had passed, he opened his eyes once more. He was now inside the dream world, in the year Boz 1359, standing in the exact spot he had left. Lu Xing gazed at the system interface and calmly commanded, "Display my life summary." In the very next instant, a wealth of information materialized before him. The moment Lu Xing's eyes fell upon his own portrait, his heart pounded in his chest. He knew then that his hypothesis was correct. In the photo, the handsome and determined middle-aged man he once was had vanished. In his place stood a gaunt, old man with white hair, yet whose spirit still burned with vigor. The summary began. Became a level 2 martial artist at 18, a rank considered among the weakest for his potential, yet he still became a WW, local sensation in Bass City. Later, with a recommendation from the Bass City Martial Arts Association, he took part in the Dongming Province Prodigy Training Camp, securing a spot in the top 20. That very same year, he was accepted into Dongming University of Martial Arts, ranked first in the city, 32nd in the province, and an impressive 45th in the entire country. After 3 years, he graduated from Dongming University of Martial Arts and went on to serve in the military. 5 years after that, he was honorably discharged with the rank of lieutenant. He then returned to Bass City and founded the Sacred Martial Arts Academy, ultimately being promoted to a level 6 martial artist, a journey that shows how one truly becomes strongest in their domain. A martial artist at 45 years of age, he failed to even qualify as a level 7 master that year. He perished in year 383 at the age of 87 during an assault by foreign beasts on Bass City. This proves the future can indeed be changed. Or at the very least, my own future can be altered. Just 1 week ago, I was among the weakest, a mere level 4 martial artist fated to die at 37. And a week later, I have successfully charted a life that extends into my 80s. My power has surged to level 6, and had I not met with that accident, I might have lived longer still. Effort is of the utmost importance. The saying choice determines fate now rings with absolute truth. Closing the optical mind's interface, a look of sheer determination hardened in Luing's eyes. Through this verification, I am certain my idea is valid. Fate can be changed, but to truly alter the destiny of the human race and shift the entire world's trajectory for the next 10,000 years, the strength I currently possess is woefully insufficient for the task. A level 6 past master is insignificant, while a level 7 master, a level 8 grandmaster, or even a level 9 martial sage all seem impossibly out of reach. Perhaps only when I reach the absolute peak of level 10 or even the legendary level 11 in this era will I have the slightest possibility of saving what must be saved. Only when one becomes strongest can they truly command destiny. Even 10,000 years in the future, level 11 martial powerhouses were an exceptionally rare sight, much less in the current age with a martial cultivation history of just over 300 years. The path that Ling had chosen was one of immense difficulty. However, he was resolved to give it his absolute all. At the Bass City Martial Artists Association, inside the chairman's office, the 59-year-old Xiao Yue had a full head of black hair and a rosy complexion, with barely a wrinkle on his face, making it impossible to see him as a man who would soon be a sexagenarian. But for a peak level 6 martial artist on the verge of breaking into the realm of a level 7 master, this was not surprising at all. Xiao Yue was practicing his calligraphy, writing the character for spirit with a brush, and he was completely immersed in the act. Xiao had once met an old master who claimed he had accumulated enough in all other aspects, but his spiritual cultivation was his only shortcoming. So long as he wrote the spirit character 100,000 times, it was possible for him to finally ascend to the realm of a master. Chairman, the door was suddenly flung open and a figure rushed inside. Xiao Yue's hand shook, causing a drop of ink to splatter on the paper, ruining the half-finished character. Xiao Yue glanced at the blemished character with a hint of regret, calmly put down the brush, picked up a towel, wiped his hands, and spoke, "What is the matter? What has caused such a panic that you would forget the simple courtesy of knocking before you enter?" The person who had burst in was Xiao's secretary. She was a svelte woman in her 30s, wearing a pair of glasses. "My deepest apologies, President. I will be sure to pay attention next time." The secretary apologized, her face flushing with embarrassment, before her expression turned gravely serious. "There is something of critical importance to report." The secretary held up the document in her hands and began to summarize the matter. Xiao's face was calm at first, but his expression began to visibly shift as she reached the core of the report. "Bring that data here, now." Xiao Yue's composure shattered as he urged her on impatiently. The secretary hurriedly handed over the documents she was holding. Xiao Yue snatched the file and began to flip through it with focused intensity. In a moment, his eyes began to widen in disbelief, and the muscles at the corners of his eyes started to twitch uncontrollably. Mouth, and a wave of pure astonishment washed over his face. After a moment, Xiao Yue's body slowly tilted backward as he took a sharp, audible breath. A muffled thud echoed from the screen, the sound of Lu Xing's devastating punch. 15,700, combined with a perfection realm fist technique, he articulated, enunciating each word with gravity. His secretary paused, a look of confusion clouding her features. Xiao Yue simply waved his hand and explained, "This is the jargon of our martial arts world. Since you're not a martial artist, you wouldn't understand, but you just need to grasp this." Xiao Yue continued, his expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. "From what I know, the number of individuals who have mastered their fist techniques to the perfection realm at his age can be counted on 2 hands, no more than 10. The secretary was visibly stunned, a sense of disbelief dawning on her. At 17 years old, he's achieved a perfection realm fist technique? Xiao Yue clicked his tongue in amazement. But even with the boost from a perfection realm fist technique, it's incredibly difficult to break a combat power index of 15,000 with a blood chi value of only 15.7. The power amplification from a perfection realm fist technique is, at most, a 2-fold increase. Xiao Yue's brows knitted together tightly as he rewound the video and played it back once more. With each viewing, Xiao Yue's eyes grew wider and wider, a blood chi value of 15.7, yet 10 times the standard combat power index for that BQV from an ordinary family. Finally, on the 5th replay, Xiao Yue shot up from his seat, startling his secretary. "That has to be it. It must be. There's no other logical explanation." Xiao Yue couldn't contain his exhilaration, clenching his fists so tightly his knuckles turned white. His excitement was a tidal wave, unlike anything he felt before, in recent memory. "Chairman," the secretary asked cautiously. He quickly composed himself after his outburst and finished his fit of triumphant laughter. The chairman beamed at his secretary, exclaiming, "Ha ha, Xiao, this time our B-City Martial Arts Association has struck gold, a true martial arts prodigy. It's amazing to think the one who becomes strongest could emerge from our B-City. He's so young, yet his talent with his fists is already off the charts. Ha!" The secretary then asked, "Just how rare are these gifted martial artists?" "Martial cultivation," he began to explain, "is essentially the process of continuously unlocking the latent potential within the human body. During this journey, a select few awaken incredible abilities that defy all imagination. These rare individuals are what we call talented martial artists. It is the only explanation that makes any sense. A talented martial artist experiences a massive surge in their blood chi value during the initial awakening of their gift, which perfectly aligns with the recent events surrounding Luin. As for his absurd combat power, which so drastically surpasses that of a normal martial artist, it must be the innate ability he has awakened. This is how the seemingly weakest can suddenly display such power of that nature." Xiao Yue's thoughts crystallized. All his doubts about Luin evaporated, replaced by an overwhelming sense of gratitude and sheer joy. With this realization, Xiao Yue could barely contain his glee and immediately instructed his secretary. "Quickly, arrange a car for me at once. I intend to visit Ling at his home personally and pay my respects to his parents, to thank them for bringing such a phenomenal son into this world. Yes, Chairman. Meanwhile, Annie Wang stood at the entrance of the Martial Arts Academy, pacing restlessly with a hint of annoyance on her face. A stocky young man in a Red River Martial Arts Academy uniform hurried over, panting as he spoke. Senior Sister Annie Wang, what's the news? Annie Wang's eyes immediately lit up with anticipation, her voice laced with a mixture of anticipation and urgency as she inquired about any news. The young man, wiping a bead of sweat from his brow, gave a firm nod. His name is Louis, a senior student at BHA 3rd High School. His father is employed as a porter at Xing Logistics. His mother works the cash register at Xfu Supermarket. He has one younger sister, and the family resides in the 15th building of the Bin District. Excellent. And Iwan clenched her fist tightly, a look of profound satisfaction spreading across her face. The young man beside her, looking perplexed, couldn't resist asking curiously, Senior Sister, if I may ask, why are you looking for this Louis? Did he offend you? From his file, he seems like one of the weakest students. You don't need to push him to the brink. Silence. And Iwan cut him off sharply, refusing to let his words spoil her triumphant mood. The youth meekly went quiet and did not dare to utter another word. As he watched, Iwan's phone began to ring. Understood. She ended the call, her elegant features now a complex canvas of conflicting emotions. The call had been from her contact within the Martial Arts Association. I knew it would be soon, but I never imagined it would be this soon, Iwan said, taking a deep breath as her usual calm returned to her eyes. With newfound purpose, she strode towards the exit. Take me to Louis's home now. And on the way, have our juniors purchase some presents suitable for his parents and a 16 to 17-year-old girl. Make sure they are expensive. And Iwan had been desperately waiting for this meeting with Louis ever since the day she saw his staggering BQV and CPI results. Meanwhile, Louis was jolted awake by a sharp knock, forcing him to end his training session within the dream world prematurely. Brother, hurry and come out. Someone is here looking for you. His sister, Lena, shouted through the door, her tone laced with anxiety. All right, I'm coming, Louis answered, a pensive expression forming on his face. Lena's behavior was incredibly odd today. Her knock was far too gentle, and she had abandoned her typical, apathetic words. Instead, she called him by his actual name, followed by the urgent news that someone was looking for him. Louis had a strong suspicion about the reason for this visit. After a quick tidying of his room, he stepped out and ran a quick glance around the room, spotting Lu Hai, Jin Yuan, and Lu Qinghe in the living room. Seated with them were an unfamiliar man and woman. Next to the sofa was a large pile of gifts, their expensive nature obvious from the luxurious packaging alone. Louis, come over here. Seeing him emerge, the bewildered Lu Hai and Jin Yuan immediately beckoned him over. Every head in the room turned in his direction. Mom, Dad. Louis calmly walked over as Lena quickly offered him a seat. And these two are? Louis's gaze settled on the man and woman on the sofa. Jin Yuan hastily made the introductions. This is President Xia Yua from the Bass City Martial Arts Association. And this, she said with a thoughtful expression, is Miss Anawan of the Red River Martial Arts Academy. Student Louis can be considered a familiar face. He should be no stranger to our academy. In fact, we have even met once before, Student Louis. Anawan smiled, radiating an aura of poise and composure as she addressed everyone. Louis nodded. Hello, President Xia. Hello, Miss Anawan. I'm Louis. May I ask the reason you've come to see me? Anawan wisely remained silent, deferring to President Xia. Though her Red River Martial Arts Academy had a fine reputation, in Bass City, it paled in comparison to the authority of President Xia. This was the man who could decide if a person truly becomes strongest. Her own father, An Henan, was forced to look up to. With a refined smile, Xia rose to her feet and announced, I am here on official business, as a representative of. On behalf of the Bass City Martial Arts Association, I am here to present you, Ling, with your official martial artist badge. A flicker of recognition lit up Ling's eyes. After all, securing this badge was the entire reason he'd taken the association's test today. Meanwhile, his parents, Lu Hai and Jin Yuan, were utterly baffled by Xia's announcement, exchanging bewildered glances. Observing Ling's unshakable composure, Xia inwardly marveled, truly befitting the top genius of ARA City, a young man on the path to become strongest. He was clearly cut from a different cloth. For Lu Hai and Jin Yuan, who had just walked in, this sudden visit was completely unexpected. One introduced himself as the president of the Martial Arts Association, while the other mentioned she was from a prestigious martial arts school. This whole situation left them thoroughly perplexed as they all sat down. Xia then turned to Ling. Young friend Ling, I am now formally notifying you, on behalf of the Bass City Martial Artists Association, that you have successfully passed the examination. You are now recognized as an official Level 2 martial artist. This title is yours from this day forward. Certified by the Martial Arts Association, Xia Yua announced with a pleasant smile. Furthermore, due to your exceptional performance on the CPI test, which far surpassed the standards for a Level 2 martial artist, we have decided that your monthly martial arts stipend will be paid at the rate of a Level 3 martial artist. But that's not all. Because of your extraordinary martial arts talent, our Baz Martial Arts Association is also awarding you a bonus of 1 million yuan. We hope you'll continue to strive for greater glory in the world of martial arts. As Xia finished his speech, Lu Hai and Jin Yuan, seated on the adjacent sofa, were completely stunned. Their eyes went wide, and their mouths hung open. A deafening buzz filled their minds, and had they not been sitting, they surely would have collapsed right onto the floor. Lu Hai and Jin Yuan felt as if they were dreaming. 1 million? Pinch me. Is this real? Beside them, Linga's face was also a mask of shock, though she held her composure better than the couple. Ling, however, remained serene. Aside from the 1 million yuan bonus, everything else had been within his expectations. My sincere thanks, President Xia, Ling said, casually placing the badge and the bonus check on the table. He then added, I am grateful for your encouragement, Chairman Xia, and that of the association. However, I know there's no such thing as a free lunch. What is it that you require of me in return? Chairman Xia? Ling's directness astonished the chairman, who replied with a grin, You continue to surprise me. With your composure and talent. There's one more matter I wish to discuss, Xia continued. In 2 days, a certain provincial training camp for high school candidates will commence. The association would like to officially recommend you for a spot. Are you referring to the prodigy training camp, the one hosted by the provincial association? And Wang, who had been quiet until now, interjected cautiously. Xia Yue turned his gaze to her. So, you've heard of this camp? And Wang nodded. I have. It's rumored that only the most gifted martial arts geniuses from the entire Doing province are even qualified to attend, with fewer than 10 participants selected from each city. As an Wang processed the scene before her, a sense of unease filled her heart. She continued speaking, her tone more somber. While it's true that geniuses gather there, it's also a place where the dreams of the weakest are shattered. She recalled a story about one of them. Senior brothers from their martial arts training hall who had attended this very prodigy camp, one of whom was always high-spirited and highly regarded. Yet when he returned from the camp, that once vibrant spirit was utterly crushed, leaving him defeated and feeling like the weakest among them. He simply faded into obscurity. And Wang rushed to interject, pleading, Ling, with your incredible talent, you don't need to take such a gamble. You can reach far greater heights through your own efforts. Chairman Xia simply nodded, conceding, Indeed, there are certainly risks involved with the prodigy camp's training. Chairman Xia then looked at Ling, his eyes filled with anticipation. You must understand, it is a place where many end up as mere stepping stones for another's glory, but for someone like you, Ling, it is the very place where one truly becomes strongest. With the extraordinary abilities and talent you've shown, your potential will soar far beyond anyone else's. Xia then raised the invitation, his expression softening as he looked at Ling. So, what are your thoughts? Does this interest you? Ling, faint smile. Piecing together the conversation between Wang and Chairman Xia, he deduced this prodigy camp was an opportunity of pure upside with manageable risk. If that was the case, there was no reason not to experience it. Ling extended his hand to take the invitation. Chairman Xia's face lit up with anticipation as Ling gave a firm nod, accepting the letter. Chairman Xia, you've convinced me. This will undoubtedly be beneficial, Ling stated with confidence. Chairman Xia finally let out a breath of relief, his mission finally accomplished. Looking thoroughly pleased, he rose from the sofa and announced, Since my purpose here is fulfilled, I shall take my leave. Before departing, Chairman Xia made a point to shake hands with Lu Hai and Xuan, his expression turning serious. He said with great solemnity, My deepest thanks to you both for raising such a truly exceptional son. Lu Hai and Xuan escorted him out, their minds still reeling, unable to fully process what had just transpired. Now then, Ling's gaze shifted. I believe it's time you revealed your true purpose for being here. His eyes landed squarely on Wang as he spoke in a calm, measured tone. And Wang was visibly stunned. In that instant, she felt Ling's entire presence transform. If he had seemed reserved before, he now exuded a liberated power, like a quiet lion that had just casually revealed its fangs. The sheer pressure he radiated gave her the brief illusion that she was standing before her own father. A palpable sense of oppressive tension began to build within her, and this was her, an official level 3 martial artist. However, coming from a family that directed the academy, she quickly regained her composure. She steadied her nerves and declared, I am here to formally invite you, student Ling, to become an honorary disciple of our Red River Martial Arts Academy. Honorary disciple? Ling's brow furrowed. Explain. It's much like any other disciple, she began. You wouldn't need to attend every day, but you would be welcome anytime you wish. All academy courses and training equipment would be available to you free of charge. You could even receive personal instruction from my father. Furthermore, you'll be granted the highest level of treatment, on par with a head instructor. Truthfully, the title is purely nominal. You would have no binding obligations to fulfill, Wang explained in a rush. In reality, this honorary disciple title was a position she had invented on the spot. The academy had honorary instructors and honorary trainers, but never an honorary disciple. However, Ling was far too young to be appointed as a head instructor, and the academy's primary interest was in securing his terrifying, raw talent. Thus, Wang conceived of this unique title, a 17-year-old level 2 martial artist whose combat power index was already equivalent to a level 3 master. A talent like that was unheard of. Once that sign goes up, won't the Red River Martial Arts Academy completely dominate Bass City? Imagine how many parents would scramble to enroll their kids. their children. Hoping each one becomes strongest in their generation, the publicity from this move would be more effective than hiring a level 4 or even a level 5 instructor. Martial artist to serve as a master. That was in Yuang's brilliant idea. No, Ling stated, refusing decisively. The terms of compensation can be discussed, and Yifang quickly conceded. Ling, however, skillfully pivoted the conversation, continuing, I am amenable to an honorary membership. You can advertise that I frequently train at your martial arts academy, which is, after all, the simple truth. The title of disciple carried far too many obligations. The director of the Red River Martial Arts Academy, and Hongan, was someone Ling had never even laid eyes on. How could he possibly agree to be the disciple of a total stranger, even in name only? He refused to let anyone use his reputation for shady dealings. If you can accept these terms, then we have a deal. If not, then I must decline. Ling said with a cool indifference. Of course, I will likely continue using your academy for future tests, given its convenient proximity to my home. Annie's expression revealed an internal struggle for a moment before her features softened. Very well, an honorary membership it is. The previous terms will still apply, with the one condition that this honorary title remains exclusive to our Red River Martial Arts Academy. Agreed. Ling nodded. Then I shall not take up any more of your time. And Yuang rose to her feet and took her leave. Although the final arrangement was slightly different from what she had initially envisioned, it was certainly not an unacceptable outcome, and Yuang was perfectly aware of her position. She knew that once Ling's test results became public knowledge in Baihei City, the academy would eventually earn back far more than what they had invested in this honorary membership. In fact, one could say their Red River Martial Arts Academy had been incredibly fortunate. The academy's location just happened to be in the same neighborhood as Ling's home, which is what presented them with this golden opportunity. After seeing Anwan off, the family began to tidy up. Ling observed his parents, who were still examining the badge and the check in utter disbelief. Lu Dai and Jin Yuan were clearly still in a state of shock. Ling's mother finally spoke. Sheng, this isn't some kind of elaborate dream, is it? An award of 1 million yuan and a monthly stipend of 100,000 yuan. His father then added his own bewildered question. Was that truly the chairman of the Martial Arts Association just now? He actually came to our home in person, and since when? Did you become a rank 2 martial artist? It's unbelievable, going from one of the weakest to this. These questions swirled in their minds as they remained utterly perplexed. The entire situation felt completely surreal, as if they were living in a dream. Ling simply offered a warm smile, content that his plan was succeeding. This is all very real. I have officially become a rank 2 martial artist. Mom, you can finally stop working those exhausting night shifts. It's too taxing on your body. And Dad, you no longer have to take on those back-breaking labor jobs just to make ends meet. Your body can't endure that kind of strain anymore. Ling gently took his mother's hand, his voice full of sincerity. He embraced his parents, saying, I am more than capable of earning money now. You both can finally rest and stop pushing yourselves so hard. His parents were simply overwhelmed by their son's incredible achievements. Lu Qinghe, however, stood frozen in the background. She simply could not process how her brother, who she always saw as the weakest and most useless, was able to accomplish something so monumental. Meanwhile, across town at the Xingan Medicinal Hall, He Lingsu had been waiting impatiently for an entire week. It has been a full week. I don't have a name, I don't know what he looks like, He Lingsu muttered in frustration while picking at her nails. She had meticulously reviewed every document for newly registered alchemists, but found absolutely nothing. I found absolutely nothing. Where on earth did this genius alchemy master even materialize from? Why can't I find even the faintest trace? Hai Lingsu was seething with frustration. An entire week? No, more than a week had passed, and she still hadn't managed to secure a meeting with this mysterious pharmacist. She didn't have a clue what he looked like or even his name. If she couldn't meet him, she couldn't obtain the new potion. Without it, the He family would remain in their weakest position, with no path to recovery. This dire predicament was why Hai Lingsu was so anxious and enraged, having barely slept a wink for the past week, and her complexion had noticeably suffered for it. During this torturous week, Hai Lingsu had been relentlessly analyzing the pharmacology and the ingredients of that enigmatic medicinal liquid. The deeper she delved, the more staggering the results she uncovered. The potency of this unknown supplement in fortifying one's blood exceeded all the grade 1 and grade 2 supplements that were currently on the market, all of which met the standards set by the Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, and it even surpassed some of the grade 3 supplements. Not only that, but it possessed more than a dozen additional effects with nearly non-existent side effects, and its overall period of effectiveness was frighteningly long. Still no results? Hai Lingsu demanded, slamming her fists on the table impatiently. Math cautiously replied, I can occasionally establish contact with him, but every single time, before I can even get a word out, he terminates the call. Useless. Weren't you just pounding your chest and swearing it was absolutely no problem? I actually put my trust in you. Hai Lingsu slammed her fist down again and pointed directly at Maf's nose, berating him. Maf felt as if the air was being squeezed from his lungs, but he dared not refute her. Who told him to make such grand promises? He had lost all credibility now. Hai Lingsu sighed softly, rubbing her temples in exhaustion. Yes, miss, she heard Maf's tentative call. What is it? Hailing Su asked, her voice flat with disinterest. Mav had zero actual skill, but he was world-class when it came to empty boasts. She couldn't even stand looking at him. I found the master. What? Hailing Su froze completely for a second. Then her whole body shot up from her seat. Where is he? Where is this master? She then noticed Mav wore an incredibly bizarre expression, his eyes staring intently in one direction. He then raised a finger to point. He's right there. Hailing Su immediately snapped her head around, only to see the television set hanging in the pharmacy's lobby. A news report was being broadcast at that very moment. Yesterday, an unbelievably outstanding martial arts prodigy appeared right here in our city. Only 17 years of age, he passed the official examination for a level 2 martial artist, and his combat power index has already reached the standard of a level 3 martial artist. Hailing Su was staring at the television, completely dazed, when she heard Mav's hushed whisper, "Miss, the one who borrowed our blending room, the very person we've been trying to contact. It's this Ling." What? Hailing Su's eyes flew wide open. Ling, the martial arts genius who becomes strongest, is also a master pharmacist? She gazed at the young, almost boyish face with handsome features being showcased on the news. Her mind buzzed for a moment, as if 100 fighter jets were screaming past her head simultaneously. Shuai City is the designated location for the Dongming Province Prodigy Camp. In order to get there, a person must first arrive at the military base. From that point, they will be escorted to the Prodigy Camp. After his meeting with Chairman Xiao Wu, Ling packed some clothes and received permission from he had left his parents behind to travel to Shuai City, and now stood at Wild Fox Mountain, the most scenic and breathtaking area located on the outskirts of the city. Within these lush mountains and forests lay countless precious alchemical treasures, as well as various beasts whose very bodies could be used in alchemy. Amidst it all, a lone figure was seen ascending at an extreme velocity. It was Lu Xing, a hiking bag slung over his shoulder, blazing past the native animals as he dashed straight for the mountaintop. His chest rose and fell in a profound rhythm, the space between each breath lasting far longer than that of any ordinary person. His footsteps were like cannonballs exploding from the ground, each stride spanning a distance of 7 to 8 meters, culminating in an unbelievably fast pace. I never thought stellar power could be applied to movement techniques this way, he mused. With 4 times the stellar power and the absorption of so many dream memories, my proficiency has finally hit a plateau in movement techniques. My speed is at least 5 times faster than a standard level 2 martial artist, and on top of that, there's the natural breathing technique. I'm only now realizing its proper use. Although in the past few days, Lu Xing's BQV had certainly increased, it was still a long way from the benchmark of a level 3 martial artist. His ability to maintain this relentless pace up the mountain was entirely thanks to the natural breathing technique. This very breathing method, celebrated as the ultimate art that allows one to become the strongest in the martial world 10,000 years from now, finally erupted with unparalleled brilliance the moment Lu Xing's physical body reached its breaking point. Every time Lu Xing inhaled, it was as if he were drawing pure energy from the air itself, which profoundly replenished his depleted stamina. Driven by the power of the natural breathing technique, Lu Xing's body continued to generate even greater strength from within. Lu Xing landed heavily onto a platform with both feet. At this moment, he had finally reached the summit of Wild Fox Mountain. Steam billowed from Lu Xing's skin, and his entire body radiated a heat far more intense than that of a normal person. He could almost hear the thunderous sound of his own blood surging and rushing through his veins. Lu Xing exhaled a long, cleansing breath, and a wave of relief washed over him. A breakthrough. Lu Xing clenched his fist slightly and could clearly feel his blood chi value had skyrocketed by a huge margin. This increase in BQV means my physique has also improved, and I can now continue practicing the stellar body refining technique. Lu Xing sensed his inner power for a moment. I estimate I should be able to generate 6 times the stellar power. This implied that his combat power index had also soared to a new height. In reality, Lu Xing felt these were all secondary benefits. His biggest gain today was discovering the true method for practicing the natural breathing technique during the climb. Rapid stamina recovery and greatly enhanced endurance, which constantly stimulated his latent potential. These effects were remarkable during training, but if the same were applied in an actual battle, the consequences would be simply terrifying. Just imagine a fighter like Lu Xing, who, with his natural breathing technique, possessed the power to rapidly recover his stamina and an endurance that was several times, or even a dozen or so times, greater than that of an ordinary martial artist. This process could continuously force him to shatter his physical limits. With this power, he would no longer be the weakest. He could take on not just martial artists of the same level, but even those far beyond. He could wear down adversaries far more powerful than himself. It was as if every stronger foe he faced was just another step on his path as he becomes strongest. Now, with his breakthrough in BQV and the discovery of the crucial herb required for the marrow-nourishing pill, his entire purpose for coming to Shuai had been fully accomplished. Ling felt a sense of ease wash over him. His trip to Shanghai City for the marrow-nourishing pill was a complete success. One of the key medicinal herbs for the marrow-nourishing pill had to be freshly picked to maintain its effectiveness, and this particular herb was found exclusively on Wild Fox Mountain. Ling had previously contacted some locals to purchase the herbs and happened to ascend the mountain himself. Unexpectedly, he achieved a major breakthrough in both his BQV and his stellar power. The trail Ling had taken was treacherous and seldom traveled, a path where even the weakest would falter. As such, there was no formal platform leading to the summit. Ling simply stood there, enjoying the scenery as he almost completely recovered, before descending with his cloud-chasing step technique. When he finally reached the foot of the mountain, a short, thin, dark-skinned, middle-aged man squatting by the roadside while smoking took notice of him. Ling walked straight toward the man. "I'm the one who placed an order for some herbs. Are they ready for collection?" Ling asked politely. The middle-aged man replied, "Young man, the herbs you're looking for have been picked." Because the specific herbs Ling needed had to be absolutely fresh, which was why he'd hired a man to gather them for him. There were several bamboo medicine baskets on the ground in front of the middle-aged man. He casually picked up one of the medicine baskets and handed it to Ling. The basket was filled to the brim with light purple herbs, some still glistening with dew and soil. They looked as if they had just been picked. Ling was very satisfied and nodded his head. "Okay, I'll take 10 of them according to the previous agreement. 500 for each, making it 5,000. Unexpectedly, the middle-aged man simply shook his head. "No, it's 1,000 per stock, and you have to buy all the herbs we have here." The middle-aged man offered him a smug smile, revealing a mouth full of yellow teeth. "What do you mean?" Ling frowned. "Little friend, you're not a local from Shuai, are you?" As he spoke, a few other men who had been standing at a distance slowly began to walk over, staring at Ling with clear malicious intent. Obviously, they were in cahoots with the middle-aged man. The dark and skinny man sneered, "Kid, let me teach you something on behalf of your parents. When you're an outsider, you have to learn to accept when you're the weakest one here. Do you understand?" Ling's eyes narrowed slightly as he looked at the thin middle-aged man in front of him. "Are you trying to force this deal? Don't even consider calling the police. There are no surveillance cameras and no one else around. Even if the police came, they wouldn't believe a foreigner like you. Pay the money honestly and save us the trouble of being rude to you." A few of the men with fierce looks on their faces were about to surround Ling. He thought for a moment and then placed his hand on a nearby rock. It was the kind of large, solid marble that was naturally tough and could be seen everywhere. "Still want to resist, you little brat?" The middle-aged man's eyes turned cold, and he was about to order his men to charge at Ling. But the very next moment, the expression on his face suddenly froze. A steady stream of pebbles, none bigger than half of a little finger, fell from between Ling's fingertips as Ling continued to casually rub his fingers. These pebbles were then quickly ground into even smaller particles, showing how he becomes strongest under pressure. The man and his cronies were utterly stunned, staring in disbelief without being able to form a single word. Ling calmly retracted his fist, his goal of intimidating the bandits thoroughly achieved. "What was that you were saying to me?" Ling asked, looking at the man with a placid expression. "Nothing. Absolutely nothing." The middle-aged man scrambled back several steps, his tanned face now a ghastly shade of white. Fearfully, he stammered, "Please, take everything. No charge, I won't ask for a single penny." Behind him, the other men were just as terrified. They gazed at Ling as if they had just witnessed a phantom, their hearts pounding in their chests, and a moment later, they all dropped to their knees. Begging for their lives, they pleaded for forgiveness. Ling gestured to the bamboo baskets. "If you're quite finished, I will be taking all of these." "Yes. Take them, take it all. Consider it a gift." Ling nonchalantly picked up a basket filled with medicinal herbs. He then walked over to the middle-aged man and said gravely, "Allow me to teach you a valuable lesson on behalf of your parents. When you're conducting business, honesty is paramount. You should never deceive anyone, regardless of their age." Having said his piece, he turned and departed. Ling had fully intended to pay them despite their attempted scam, but seeing as they were now offering all the medicinal herbs for free, he decided to accept their offer. "Now that I have all the pill ingredients, it is time to prepare for the training camp, the next step on my path as I become strongest." Ling mused to himself. The middle-aged man and his companions remained frozen on the spot for a considerable amount of time. It was only long after Ling's figure had vanished from sight that a single sentence escaped the man's lips. "Good heavens, are all high school students such terrifying monsters these days?" With the entire basket of herbs in his possession, Ling made his way back to the hotel where he was staying. For him, this minor confrontation had no impact at all. Ling was acutely aware that the world's darkness could never be fully eradicated, but he could certainly make himself powerful enough to navigate it. "We have arrived." As the vehicle slowed to a complete stop, the driver's voice broke his thoughts. Ling gave a slight nod and disembarked from the military transport with his bag. Spread out before him was a massive, heavily fortified military installation. Both sides of the perimeter were secured by towering, electrified iron wire fences. Directly ahead, a colossal iron gate was shut tight, with uniformed soldiers standing vigilant guard right at the entrance. He also saw about a dozen young men and women who appeared to be around his age, all of them carrying suitcases of varying shapes and sizes. Ling thought to himself, "So this is the training camp's location. It feels more like a fortress." Ling observed that every single one of these individuals wore a distinct, brass-colored badge on their uniform. He recognized them from their placement on the left side of their chests. Martial arts badges, I suppose we're required to wear those here. It was a shame that Ling's own level 2 martial artist badge had been left at home, where it was being kept by his mother, Shuin, like some priceless treasure. Otherwise, he might have been tempted to take it out for a little show. As Ling was taking in his new surroundings, a soldier noticed him and approached. "Which city are you from? And why have you arrived here all by yourself?" "I am from B City." I was delayed by a small matter, which is why I arrived late, Lewin calmly explained to the soldier. The nearby group of young men and women glanced over at Lewin and began whispering amongst themselves. Someone from B City? Didn't their group already head inside a while ago? How is it that one person was left all alone? He probably just barely scraped by. You can tell he hasn't even officially cleared the martial artist assessment yet. Besides, B City has consistently been ranked as the weakest in the entire province when it comes to results. Lewin overheard these dismissive conversations with a perfectly serene expression, his heart as calm and undisturbed as still water, reflecting his current state of power. Strength. Even if this entire group of fledglings, who had barely met the standard of official level, one martial artists, were to swarm him at once, they would still be utterly outmatched. The middle-aged man's gaze dropped back to the roster, and then he lifted his head. You're Lewin, the one mentioned by Shah, president of the BAM Martial Arts Association. Lewin gave a firm nod. In confirmation. The officer's point was made. He had mentioned it intentionally, but the words landed very differently on the ears of the other young men and women present, who interpreted it in an entirely different way. So, he's someone the president of B City's Martial Arts Association is personally looking out for? No wonder. How impressive, having connections with the president of a city's martial arts association, someone muttered with clear sarcasm. Lewin remained unfazed, but the middle-aged man in the military uniform arched an eyebrow and barked, "All of you, silence!" The entire group instantly fell quiet. The officer did a quick head count again, and after confirming there were no issues, he addressed Lewin. In that case, you can enter with the contingent from Qingyuan City. Proceed inside for your induction ceremony. With that, the officer led them around the training field, finally stopping before a low-slung building. Leave your luggage here. It will be delivered to you later. The officer gave the order with a detached air. While the others saw nothing unusual, Lewin's instincts screamed that something was amiss in his tone. However, despite this uneasy feeling, Lewin dutifully fell in line behind the others and proceeded into the base, guided by the officer. The students from Qingyuan City were completely oblivious, unaware of what was truly happening, but they still complied with the officer's instructions and filed through the small doorway one after another. Lewin positioned himself at the very end of the line. The moment the last person was inside, the iron door behind them slammed shut with a deafening clang. They heard the rattling of heavy chains, feeling the vibrations as the door was securely locked. A wave of unease swept through the group simultaneously. Then, they heard the officer's voice echo from outside, "All right, that's enough. Settle down. To pass this entrance examination, simply make your way to the exit on the other side. This first trial determines who has the will to become strongest and who will remain the weakest. If you fail, you can pack your bags and return to where you came from. Good luck." "What?" someone yelled instantly. "I thought this was an induction ceremony. Why is there a surprise examination?" But before he could even finish his complaint, the air filled with the sound of grinding cogs and whirring machinery. The floor of the small room split open down the middle, and the entire group of young men and women lost their footing, plummeting downwards with terrified screams. Lewin, however, had sensed the mechanism long before it even began to move. To be precise, the very second Lewin had stepped into this room, he was already aware of the hidden mechanism concealed beneath the floorboards and the intricate, narrow passageway that lay waiting underground. The thud of bodies hitting the ground, punctuated by a few soft groans of pain, echoed around him. The aspiring martial artists landed on their feet, one by one. After all, they were official level 1 martial artists. Even caught by surprise, the majority of them reacted with swift reflexes once the trap was sprung. Only the weakest of the group, still paralyzed by panic, landed awkwardly on their backs and bottoms. Lewin, however, landed steadily on the ground without a single sound. His spiritual power, the very essence of a warrior who becomes strongest, wrapped around his feet like water and provided a perfect cushioning force. To any observer, it would have looked as if he had simply floated down. This was just one of the many ways of channeling the spiritual energy he had painstakingly cultivated within the dream world. Lewin focused his senses. In that moment, what materialized before them all was a sealed passageway, its 4 walls constructed from solid steel plates. The corridor was approximately 2 meters wide, spacious enough to accommodate 4 people walking shoulder to shoulder. His spiritual sense served as his eyes, sweeping a 100-meter radius in all directions, leaving no blind spot undetected. This omniscient perspective, a form of psychic X-ray vision, was one of its most basic functions. Satisfied, he then began to spread the spiritual energy across the entire surface of his body. Lewin estimated that if his power grew sufficiently potent, he could eventually rely on it alone to perceive every trap and danger within the examination hall. As it was, Lewin's senses picked up several obscure shadows concealed behind the corridor's thick walls. Even as he used his psychic power to scan the environment, he could only make out the faint silhouettes of figures positioned behind hidden mechanisms within the walls. From the group of students from Qingyuan City, a tall, slender, and handsome youth with a haughty expression sneered, "I was expecting something truly special. But it's only this? How utterly dull." Another student then yelled out, "Lin Xiao, did you know all along that there was a trick to the induction ceremony? What the hell, man? Why didn't you give us a heads up? I fell flat on my butt, and it hurts so much I think it's going to split in 2. The young man named Lin Xiao shot him a look of pure disdain and retorted, "You lack the basic ability to adapt to your surroundings, and you still have the nerve to call Yourself an official martial artist? You'll just end up being the weakest one here. You!" The humiliated youth's face flushed with shame and fury, but he dared not make a move. "All right, stop arguing," a voice cut in. "We're all from the same city and getting into this training camp wasn't easy. None of us wants to be eliminated, so let's focus on figuring out how to pass this test." A tall and gentle-looking girl stepped forward to act as a peacemaker. "What other choice do we have? We have to keep moving," another student said. "Didn't the guide who led us here say that we just need to reach the exit to pass? If we work together, we will definitely be able to handle whatever comes next. After all, our group includes 10 level 1 martial artists." Abruptly, Lin Xiao pointed a finger at Lu Ying, who was standing quietly in a corner. "What about this guy? He's not from Qingwen City." In an instant, all eyes turned to Lu Ying. The group stared at him, their expressions slowly shifting to ones of cruel amusement. "Perfect timing, since we have no idea what dangers are waiting for us. We can just use him to scout the path," Lin Xiao suggested with a smirk. Immediately, another person echoed the sentiment. "That's a brilliant idea." The kind girl from before looked uneasy. "Wait, I don't think that's right. He's here to train just like us. Everyone should have a fair shot to prove he becomes strongest." Lu Ying listened from the side, a flicker of amusement in his eyes, before he shook his head and stepped forward. The young man, Lin Xiao, simply smiled and tried to placate her. What does it matter? Someone like him, who clearly got in through connections, and couldn't even manage to pass the level 1 official martial artist exam, is just dead weight, even if he's in this camp. He'll be weeded out in a matter of days, Lin Xiao repeated with a dismissive smile. "It's irrelevant. People who rely on their connections and can't even clear the basic assessment are bound to be eliminated quickly, even if they slip into the training camp. It makes no difference." Turning to Lu Ying, he said, "I see you're being proactive." Lin Xiao nodded. "All right, kid. From B City, if you do a good job scouting for us, we might consider letting you follow behind our group later." Lu Ying simply smiled, his expression unreadable.